Hello, I'm Janise Smith, and it brings me great pleasure to be your moderator, along with Dave Hardy. We are here for the great all-candidate debate in Scarborough. It's a Thank you. It's a public forum intended to connect community residents in Scarborough with candidates so that we have a few of our questions answered, enabling us to get or to make an informed decision on October the 22nd, Election Day. So I would like at this time to welcome the panel of candidates running for Ward 25. Amanda Cain, Paul Cookson, Danielle Cubellis, Reza Khoshdel, Cheryl Lewis-Thurab, Jennifer McKelvie, Christopher Rowley, Neethan Shan, and Dave Matter. Thank you all. Now I have to tell you that we could not do this debate without our great sponsor. And this debate was sponsored by Sarah Vanabafan. It is the world's #1 Indian restaurant chain. And the good news is a new restaurant is opening up in Vancouver coming soon. So tell all your friends that live in Vancouver that they're going to get a taste of some really good food. So now, I would like to, at this time, go over the format of this debate. All candidates will make an opening statement, no interruptions, and they will be given 2 questions after that was prepared by Dave, and I. The next set of questions, they will be answered or asked rather by the audience member, and at this time I'd like to welcome you all here at the debate for Ward 25. You have nicely given us some questions to which Dave will be looking through and asking 2, possibly 3 questions from the audience. Each of these questions you'll be given 1 minute to answer, and you will also be given an opportunity to rebut any of the answers from your candidate that is running against you in Ward 25. If you use none of those rebuttal cards, as we call them, the soccer cards, they will be added to your closing statements, and in which time you can have up to 1 minute and 30 seconds if you use none. So, without further ado, I say, let the debates begin. And we're going to start with our opening statement, and Amanda, you can take it.
My name is Amanda Kane, was born and raised in Scarborough, and I've been working in community for the past 20 years around civic engagement, youth economic development, and corporate communications. You know, I've been advocating for 20 years, and a lot of the things that we've been asking for in Scarborough still have not come to fruition. We need to have somebody who has lived experience, who knows how to fix community, and also will ensure that they have the tenacity to get it done.
That is time. Okay. Thank you. Paul?
So my name's Paul Cookson. I was born and raised in Scarborough. And I currently live in West Hill. I've lived in West Hill for 13 years. I've ran several successful businesses. I'm a parent, and I've talked to a lot of people, and there's a lot of issues. There's tons of issues, too many to list, but I promise that I will be your voice at City Hall for what matters to you. The other thing that I promise is I'm going to attack wasteful spending wherever I see it. I will have an office in a community center, not in a office tower, and not in a retail plaza. That'll be the first thing that I do.
Thank you, Paul. Danielle?
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Cubellis. So for too long, Scarborough-Rouge Park has been neglected. For too long, the politicians have made promises that they never intended to keep. You know, that's why I'm here today, because I want to make change. I'm here because if elected, I intend on using my proven engineering experience, my proven dedication, and my proven work ethic to actually serve you guys better. I'm here to serve you, all the people of Scarborough-Rouge Park, and I'm here to build a better Scarborough-Rouge Park and a better Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Reza?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Reza Khoshdel, and I am running to be your voice at City Hall. I have been a lifelong Scarborough resident. Scarborough is in my blood, and in many ways, Scarborough is the reason I am the man I am today. But like many Scarborough residents, we yearn for a better tomorrow. We have accepted this notion that it is what it is. It is what it is that it takes our residents, on average, 40% longer to travel the same amount of distance that it does compared to anybody else in this city. It is what it is that 20% of our children live in poverty in this ward.
Thank you, Reza.
And it is what it is.
Thank you, Reza. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Lewis-Thurab, and I am running to represent the good people of Scarborough. I believe that Scarborough deserves better. We deserve someone who understands the issues. I am a longtime resident of Scarborough, so I understand the issues in Scarborough. I would like to be your representative because I think we need someone who can bridge the divide between our various communities, which is quite multicultural. City Council needs diversity, and I am here to represent that diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jennifer?
Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer McKelvie. I want to work for you at Toronto City Hall. My family and I have called Scarborough-Rouge Park home for more than a decade. I'm a mother, an environmental scientist, and a dedicated community volunteer. Now, I want to work for you. I'm tired of downtown trying to tell us what our needs are. As your councillor, I will be your strong voice to ensure Scarborough is no longer neglected. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share my plans with you today.
Thank you. Neethan? Oh, sorry, Christopher, sorry about that.
That's okay. Hi, my name is Christopher Riley. I've chosen to run for City Council in this particular election because time is now. We need action, less talk. Let's get the job done. Let's move Scarborough forward. All the time, all we ever hear is talk, talk, talk. It's enough talk. Let's get the job finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Now, Neethan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Neethan Shan. I had the privilege to serve part of almost half of Scarborough-Rouge Park as a councillor the past couple of years, and I've been able to deliver results. I've been able to make our schools safer. I've been able to work together with community to make the community safer, to bring more transit to Scarborough. And I've also been able to work together to find solutions from the community because a lot of it lies within our strength of our community. Scarborough doesn't get its fair share, so I'll continue to be a fighter to get our Scarborough the fair share. I live in Scarborough, raising my two children
Thank you,
in
Neethan.
Scarborough.
Thank you. David?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dave Matter. I've been in the ward since 1968 and in Scarborough since 1951. I've been involved since 1990 as a community activist, social activist. I'm currently volunteering right now at the storefront, which is at the west side of the ward. Very much involved in getting the more transit out this way with subways, because I figured our share of the pie, we're not getting our share of the pie.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Now, just before I move to the next segment of this debate, I just want to remind everybody that we're also being watched online. We're being live streamed at the time as we speak. And if you would like to share the audience I'm speaking to, if you'd like to share it with your network, it's www.netwin.place/live. And I'll repeat that one more time. It's www.netwin.place/live. Thank you. Now, we are on to the questions. The first question, and we will start with David at the end and move our way up. The first question is, what, if elected, what do you propose to accomplish for the people in your ward? And you have 1 minute to answer.
Really, I have a lot of accomplishments because I've already proven myself for 30 years. So what I'm going to do is make sure we have proper transit in the ward, which I stressed at the budget meeting back in March. I stressed that we do not have a share of the pie. And I also stressed with the housing, about housing and seniors housing. I stressed that over and over again. That's my first two plans. I'm also looking at crime reduction. I had a crime prevention group back in the 90s, so I'm aware of the crime and where the crime is happening and how I can reduce the crime. There's also the homeless issues. On a few occasions, I've helped the homeless personally. I've been around the neighborhood. I walk the neighborhood every day. I walk every inch of that neighborhood. I'm also a photographer, so I can see what's going on every day. I'm in touch with the council. I'm going down to the council meetings. I'm viewing all the YouTube meetings, so I'm aware of what's happening in the.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you. Neethan?
Well, what I hope to achieve or accomplish is the same that I have been able to do in the last 2 years, to bring communities together and be heard. Scarborough has not been heard clearly and strongly at City Hall, and we have not had the fair share of resources, whether it be maintaining our parks, whether it be bringing new equipments for our children in our parks, or repairing our streets, having solutions to many of the problems. We do not have the resources that we need. So what I would hope to accomplish is to bring community together, provide a strong voice together with the communities that we cannot be ignored any further. We've had enough, talk about, we don't have enough attention to Scarborough, but we need to create that attention. And I come from community development background. I've been a youth worker, a teacher. I will mobilize the community to have that attention be heard for us, because that's the only way we can solve transit issues, that's the only way we can make our schools safer, that's the only way we can make our communities safer. We need our community to be together with the councillor as the collective force to get the solutions that we need.
Thank you, Neethan. Christopher?
Scarborough, we have a lot of issues, let's face it. There's many, many things we can sit up here and talk about them for an hour. We really need, like these guys have said, to get a piece of the pie. Our parks are always the last to get cut. Our playgrounds are always the last to brought up to standard. Because we are the little ward at the end, doesn't mean we deserve less than everybody else. We contribute as much as everybody else does. We deserve the same piece as everybody else. Our roads are horrendous, and they're getting worse. What are we going to do? We need a strong voice at City Hall. We need action, action, action. Less talk. All I ever hear from councillors from years past is promises, 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 and nothing ever gets done. It's got to stop. We've got to move forward.
Thank you, Christopher. Jennifer?
Thank you. I want to use my professional and volunteer experience to work for you. Like many of you, I spend much of my day commuting. That's time that could be better spent with my family, and time you could better spend with yours. That's why my top 2 priorities are to, 1, advocate for a long-term transit plan with dedicated funding, and 2, to stimulate our regional economy so we can have better jobs close to home. To create jobs, I'll continue the work I've done with Renew Scarborough and many of the community leaders here in this room today. In that capacity, I will advocate for a Scarborough-specific economic development plan to bring corporate headquarters to Scarborough, push for the relocation of municipal jobs back to Scarborough, and boost local tourism and stimulate our economy by advocating for a living arts center, and also to make sure to ensure we promote our diverse restaurants as a culinary destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Cheryl, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. So I have a number of years in community development. I've worked with United Way Toronto and Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation. I have rolled up my sleeve in community events and get the job done. I know what it takes to get the job done. I know what it takes to work with grassroots organization. People are not looking for high-level thing. People are people, and they want people who can work with them on their level. 2 of my top issues are transit and jobs. When we have better transit, a more connected transit system, then that is going to alleviate a lot of the time, I agree with Jennifer, that people spend on the road. If we bring more jobs out to Scarborough, then all of that transit that is going downtown can be alleviated. So my role is to ensure that I advocate for a better, more connected transit system in Scarborough and to get those jobs out here.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
Reza?
Thank you very much. Really, all of us are, one thing that we share is the vision to have a better Scarborough for all of us. And I think all of us would agree that the issues that we need to address are pretty much the same across the table. So it really comes down to who is better positioned to actually get these things done. I have pretty much dedicated my entire life, my academic and my private sector experience for this very notion. So there's certain things that I'd like to focus on. We've mentioned transit already, and I've already mentioned that it takes us 40% longer to travel the same distance that other people. When it comes to community support programs, we have the highest level of senior citizens across the entire city living in our ward, but we have per capita spending the second lowest for community programs. The same exact statistics are apparent for youth as well. Also with the business community, we have the second highest commercial vacancy rates across the entire city. So our business community has no voice.
Thank you,
Our
Danielle.
youth, our seniors have
Thank
no
you.
voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have no voice.
And I should say thank you, Reza. And it's Danielle's time now.
Okay, thank you. So what I want to accomplish is pretty simple. I mean, yes, I do want better transit. I want a 3-stop subway for Scarborough. I want an LRT that goes to Malvern Town Center. I want to fix our roads. I want to do a lot of things, and you know, all of us candidates here have our heart in the right place. We want to do something special for Ward 25. But the thing is here, what they don't tell you is all these things that they're promising you, they still need 13 other people to agree with them. Whatever they say, they need the rest of the council to agree with them. But what I want to do is simple, regardless of what the decision is, whether it's to help our seniors, whether it is for transit, whether it's for our youth, our most vulnerable. I want to bring logic and common sense to City Hall. We have too many politicians nowadays. You see it on the news every night and day, whether it's here in the States or anywhere around the world. Politicians that make decisions that don't make sense. As somebody whose background is in civil engineering, I'm only going to use logic, I'm going to use evidence, I'm going to talk to the experts for any decision I make and make logical choices for the people of Scarborough-Rouge Park.
Thank you, Danielle. Paul?
The big thing that I would like to, a lot of people are talking about jobs, and I absolutely agree with that. One of the things that has to be done if we're going to be able to get jobs for people is we need to cut the red tape. I've talked to many business owners that complain and complain and complain about the City of Toronto trying to get licenses, trying to get certain things so that they can grow their businesses and hire employees. And there's roadblocks that are put in front of them. Case in point, I have a fellow that owns a business. He's been trying to get a license for a year to be able to sell cars. And as soon as he gets the license, he'll hire 2 people. He's been waiting a year to get it. That's just a perfect example of cutting red tape so that people can hire people and create jobs in our community. To what Jennifer said, less commute times. If people are working locally and we create jobs locally, that's going to be good for everybody. Anyway, there's a whole pile of other things as everybody's, senior care, crosswalks. I want to make the quality of life in Ward 25, I want to improve that for everybody. That's pretty well about it.
Thank you, Paul. Amanda?
So after speaking with hundreds of residents over the past few years, we have a long and extensive list of things that need to get done. But most notably, I'd be working on creating opportunities for youth who have opted not to go into post-secondary and may have chosen another path. Through social determinants of health, we know that eradicating poverty is one of the main issues to creating healthy communities. And I would also like to encourage the development of new daycares with non-traditional hours, bringing quality green jobs to Scarborough, and charging stations for electric vehicles that would be available at public locations, and increased bus service accessibility and creating a new express route down to the GO station.
Thank you, Amanda. Now, the next question that I'm going to ask, it's really around the policies and the programs that you would implement when you identify that one key. I'm sure many of you have just indicated that you're knocking on doors. So I'm sure there's many issues that have come up on these door knocks. But what do you identify as the one key ward issue? And what is the policy or the program that you're going to put in place to solve it if you are elected as the city councillor? And I'm going to start with Danielle.
Oh, thank you. So, oh, it's on, okay. So the one thing I do want to improve in the ward is very simple. I've talked to thousands upon thousands of residents in the ward, and they've all said the same thing. And what I want to fix is not something that I need city council to approve. I don't need a higher level of government to help me do this, to accomplish it. It's what people want is a voice. Everybody has told me that when they try to call their politicians, they don't answer the phone calls, they don't respond to emails, and it's ridiculous. You know, every election cycle, we have the same politicians doing the same song and dance, quite frankly, and they don't accomplish anything. Once they're in, they don't care about you. They collect a paycheck and hide. So what I'm doing is, as the only candidate who's actually proposed this, I'm giving a voice to the people in 3 ways. I'm gonna have a constituency office that has longer hours, 2-3 times a week, up all the way into the evening, so you can come visit me anytime. I'm giving everybody right now, and in the future, my cell phone, so you can call me anytime with any issue. And lastly, I'm gonna have town halls for all the communities in Ward 25 every 2-3 months, so that you can come voice your opinion and voice those concerns that affect your community directly to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Reza,
Yes.
you will be next.
Definitely, I think the most pressing issue, as many people have alluded to today, is public transit. So the question is, how do we change it? How do we actually improve public transit for Scarborough residents? We need to break this up into the short term and the long term. In the short term, a lot of transit planning experts say the best way to improve not only the efficacy but the effectiveness of our transit system and the way it serves our residents is through bus service optimization. Specifically in Scarborough, we have a lot of routes that either don't have enough service on them, they only service residents during the weekdays, or they don't exist at all. So in the short term, it's really about looking at strategically where we can improve that aspect of the system in the short term. In the long term, I am a strong proponent of the LRT network. I think a one-stop subway is an epic waste of money. And in a contextual environment where we are struggling to pay our bills, where we are trying to figure out where our revenue is going to come from,
Thank you, Reza.
every dollar counts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Cheryl?
So I've walked around, I've spoken to so many residents, and one of the things I keep hearing over and over that we have in Scarborough here is it's parking issues. And that ties right back into the transit system. People have a number of vehicles, and when you park your vehicle on the street, you're ticketed. Most streets don't have any parking meters. I've spoken to a number of residents who have had hundreds of dollars monthly in parking tickets. So we need to change that. If you're going to ticket people, you got to put meters on the street or give people safe times to park. Again, that ties into the transit issue, because if we had proper transit system, then there is not a need for so many vehicles by each family. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. After 5 months talking to thousands of residents at their door, a reoccurring theme has been safety and road traffic. Parents are legitimately concerned about the safety of their children as they walk to school. Our school zones simply weren't designed for the volume of traffic that they see right now, and it's become very dangerous. As your counselor, I will work closely with the local trustees to protect our children by making our school zones safer. I will do this by expanding the Active and Safe Routes to School pilot project to test new technologies, by encouraging walk and cycle to school programs so we can get our kids using active modes of transportation to get there, and also by fully supporting implementation of traffic calming at all elementary schools by 2022. I look forward to working for you to do this.
Thank you, Jennifer. Christopher?
Again, there are many issues. Public transit, it's probably number one on the list of the 13,000 plus doors we've knocked on up to now. We have a world-class transit system. We have a lot of people that say it's terrible, it's this, it's that. It's a fabulous system. It needs to be tweaked. It just needs to be fixed up a little bit. We have a lot of smaller routes that stop running at 6 o'clock in the evening. Not many people work 9 to 5 anymore. We need to have these routes run every half hour till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Get people home. Nobody wants to walk in the snow in February 5 blocks to get to their house. We shouldn't have to. You know, this is an important issue. It's safety for our young folks, it's safety for our elderly. Get people home, get them home on time. Thanks.
Thank you, Christopher. Neethan?
So, you know, most of the folks that I've been talking to have raised community safety, pedestrian safety, transit as issues. One of the key things that's going to be very important for us moving into 25-ward scenario is that we need to give each neighborhood their own voice and strength, because the solutions are not going to work the same way for entire neighborhoods that we have. You know, West Hill, West Rouge, Centennial, Highland Creek, Malvern, Rouge, Morningside Heights. Each of them have unique needs, and it's very, very important for us to strengthen the local democracy so that we can actually have their voices heard in solutions. So what I would be doing first is to make sure that I establish that stronger local democracy in the face of 25 councillors, so that each neighborhood can find solutions and advocate with me together for those solutions. And that unique character and unique identity of each of these neighborhoods has to be protected, and that will be the challenge for us to do.
Great. Thank you, Neethan. Dave?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I've gone through this before. Back in the 90s, I had solutions for all these problems, and all these problems got resolved. And for 78 years, we had better transit. I pushed for the Lawrence Avenue bus. We got that service. All the services were expanded because of what I did from the Action Committee. When Mike Harris came in, he took all that money out, so we lost all that again. So we were talking since 2000, 2008. And from 2008 until this period of time, there's been, the transit has been ruled down 8 times and not moved on. Now, the one-stop transit, they have had to have that on the table. They have money for that, $3.5 billion. But the LRT, I've just heard, even though with all the studies they've done and everything else, that transit system is not funded. There's no money for that transit system. Recently, I heard about from Mr. Ford that he was going to take over the TTC and the transit system, which I could probably see down the road.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Amanda?
And actually, just to lead off of David's point, we had a rapid transit LRT project that was shovel-ready on Shepherd Avenue that was supposed to be happen many moons ago and is still written into the Scarborough Community Plan. We should not be looking and creating new concepts, new designs for areas without putting shovels in the ground for things that already are planned and ready to go. The provincial government wants to fund the Shepherd East project, and I will put that back onto the city's priority list, as it's been declassified and is not on that priority list and has been replaced with the Eglinton East LRT concept.
Thank you, Amanda. Paul?
I promise that I'll fight to make sure that Ward 25 gets its fair share of money to fund a whole pile of different things. There's so many things that need to be done, and the number one thing I'll do is I'll work and I'll work and I'll work to fight to get the money to fix multiple things that need to be fixed. Improved crosswalks, senior care, 911. The other day I called 911 and I was on hold for 1 minute and 7 seconds, and it took 15 minutes for the police to come. We need more police. Either that or better scheduling. I'd like to look into it exactly why it takes 15 minutes for the police to come in a pretty major emergency. A guy was across the street from my house threatening people, saying he was going to kill them, and it took 15 minutes for the police to come. So I want to fight for funding. I want to fight for more money for police in our area, safe streets, crosswalks, etc. That's about it.
Thank you, Paul. Now, just before I turn it over to Dave Hardy from to listen to some questions from the audience, I just want to find out if there's anybody that would like to use the rebuttal card on any of the comments or questions that was made by the candidates running against you. Not yet. Okay. I am going to now turn it over to Dave Hardy. Let me go this way.
Thank you, Janise. We've had a lot of questions come up from the audience all day long, and a couple of good ones just before your panel that they're interested in hearing from you on. So I'm going to ask, first one, I'll probably go starting this end of the table with you, Amanda, and I'll go down. I've got a minute, and we'll see what your responses are, okay? First is, there are many opinions about rooming houses. How would you bring people in Ward 25 together to discuss solutions, and what might some solutions look like? Amanda?
Absolutely. Town halls are probably the easiest way, and we can do that also not just in person, but have use technology to have people who are at home and can't attend to give their input. My recommendation for the rooming house situations, I think a lot of students are actually in the rooming housing. And I would love to see UTSC, who has millions of dollars right now, who are looking to invest it in different projects in community, for them to create student housing within the ward that would alleviate the pressure on the rooming house situation. I do have concerns regarding licensing as well, as noted with the death that we had of a student. I would also like to ensure that when UTSC creates this space for their students, or Centennial College, that the rents are truly affordable and not something that the students are going to have to go in debt for.
Thank you. Paul?
Was the question, should we have more rooming houses?
No, it's that there's a lot of opinions about rooming houses, and how would you bring people in Ward 25 together to discuss solutions?
Oh, okay, so.
And are there some solutions you might have in mind?
Okay, so first of all, I believe surveys are a good way to find out what people think. So it'd be a good idea to get a survey out to everybody in Ward 25 and see what they think about rooming houses with multiple different questions. What do you think about it? How could they be improved? Where should we have them? Is there a need for them, et cetera, et cetera? So I think surveys is a good way to get down to the bottom of that. The other thing is to have a couple of town halls to see what people think, so that we can interact face-to-face with people and see what they're thinking.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, I'm glad town halls are now a popular opinion. But yeah, that's something I also want to do, is continue with town halls. Like I said, I'm going to have those town halls all the time to talk with the residents about what they want to do. But I think all of you are aware about the rooming houses. You look at them, and they're not fit to house 15, 20 students. Most of these houses were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, meant for a single family. So what we got to do is we got to look worldwide. We got to look at the evidence and see, maybe we need a license for these rooming houses that only allows X amount of people per square foot, or 1,000 square feet. And because these houses don't have adequate fire protection, they don't have adequate room for these students. I know for a fact, that these houses, they have people in there that are sleeping 2, 3, 4 to a room. It's ridiculous. That's not even viable for humans. So we're going to put licenses in, and we're going to have licenses where bylaw inspectors are allowed to inspect them all the time to ensure that they're up to all the standards and they're following all the building codes.
Thank you. Reza?
Thank you. There's two considerations when it comes to rooming houses. Number one, it's protection of the character of the community. When you have a large amount of students in a surrounding area like we see by the UFT, number one, you run into a lot of issues where there's absentee landlords, so they're not taking care of their properties properly. Number two, because there's people in and out of the homes all the time, you lack those community connections when you have a neighbor down the street who's been there 20 years. The other aspect of it that you need to take into consideration, it's a safety issue. When you have very little oversight over a landlord and they're able to stuff 8 people inside a house, there are fire code violations that you need to deal with. There are health code violations you need to deal with. But for me, this is indicative of a larger problem, and I'll give you one example. The northwest corner of Morningside and Ellesmere was supposed to be a development that would house a bunch of UFD students, and it's been sitting empty for the last 2 years because the city refuses to crack down on developers.
Thank you, Reza. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Cheryl?
So students need somewhere to live. I'm sure we can all agree on that. The question is where? Rooming houses exist because of this need. I think as a city, we need to do much better. I agree that the University of Toronto can do better in providing these student housing. We need better oversight when these rooming houses do exist in terms of the amount of people, the amount of students that are living in them, and to ensure that they are meeting building codes and that they are being used to proper standard. So I think all in all, there is a need for it. It's how we do it, and I will do that with community consultations, surveys, as well as social media. It's a great tool.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Jennifer?
Thank you. For decades, the status quo has been they're illegal and they need to remain illegal. And it's simply not working. The City of Toronto has plans right now for a pilot project that would launch in our area. That will come before the next term of council. We do need to have community engagement to scope what that pilot project should look like. We've had multiple town halls. We've had at least 2 in the last couple of years. We need to have a more collaborative approach that brings together citizens, students, and the owners of these homes to have a discussion so we can come up with real solutions about how many units should be in the home, how we will maintain property standards. For example, we can require that there's a deposit with these rooming houses, and if you don't cut your lawn and maintain your standards and somebody does it for you, you lose the deposit. So there are ways to enforce property standards, and there are ways to enforce safety, but we need to have a good conversation about that that's collaborative instead of confrontational, and I look forward to leading that discussion and bringing those groups together.
Thank you. Christopher?
I heard a lot of town halls, surveys. It'd be nice to meet your councillor more than once every 4 years. How about going out to the community and talk to people and find out exactly what to do? You know, get people's opinions directly. We shouldn't have to have this conversation. We shouldn't have such a crisis that people are stuffing 10, 12, 14, kids in 3 rooms because they have to go to school. We really do need guidelines laid out for these kind of homes. It's a shame. There's nothing wrong, with these kind of homes, as long as it's done properly, as long as the standards are kept up. This is something we really need to look at. Students need a place to live. They need a cheap place to live where they can afford it. I was a student. I'm sure many of you people were a student. You remember what it was like? Eating Kraft dinner out of a box? This is something we need to look at. We need to find houses where people can live, and keep an eye on them. Watch out. Make sure that they're, safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Neethan?
I think it's very important for us to make sure that the accommodation students have is just not cheap, but also safe. I think one of the biggest issues we are facing now, in addition to the areas not being kept clean and in addition to having multiple parking and so on, young people are living in unsafe conditions and their rights aren't validated. So it is very, very important for us to start taking action. While we have this discussion about what could be done and where could students be housed, it's very important for us to take care of the students who've been forced into situations where they're living in unsafe conditions. So it is important for us to take action, immediate action, to make sure that that student safety is maintained. There are universities, town councils across Ontario. Highland Creek, as I was talking about neighborhoods, here is a neighborhood that can be very much involved with the UFT in a partnership that I can facilitate so that we can actually figure solutions from a neighborhood-based model so that neighborhood is respected by the university and vice versa, so that there is cooperation happening in terms of where the student housing should be and where things can be done.
Good, thank you. And David?
I'd just like to say that we could work with the UTSC for the housing project. I think they're working on that right now, and in the north parking lot, but they could expand on that and maybe build it a little bigger so we don't have to go back at it in 3 years from now. In the meantime, I heard about the one there at Hayda Court there last January with the fire, and I just think they have to be monitored and controlled at all times, and if they're not, then they have to be fined, and we just have to be clear on what we have to do. But the thing is that we have to monitor them, number one, and we have to be on top of this at all times. And if there is not enough housing, we should be aware of that, because they've wanted housing for a long time. And I think that's the first step. And by having the town halls, by having a roundtable discussion, I think that would be a great thing.
Good, thank you. Great, our last question, and I'm going to mix it up a bit in terms of who I ask, so you're all going to be on the spot here. You've all talked about city services and the need for more services. So services include policing, I heard senior care, road maintenance, garbage, recreation parks, and so on. Would you support property tax increases to improve services in your ward, or are some services okay the way they are? And Reza, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, I have been waiting for this question. We have 1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay, in the financial context that we are finding ourselves in the situation right now, this question should be the litmus test for you folks. Because if you have a candidate that is saying, we need this service and take care of that, oh, and I'm not going to touch taxes at the same time, they're lying to you. It's as simple as that. It's simple math. And for the other portion of the argument where people are like, oh, well, actually, we can find efficiency. Well, actually, no. KPMG has done numerous studies, and we are quite efficient as a city. We don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem. So we need to talk about not only property taxes, but new forms of revenue. There are a lot of case studies around the US, Europe, where municipalities are working very creatively to come up with new forms of revenue to pay for the things that they need. And if we want to be if we want to be a world-class city, we need to act like one and start making some important,
Thank you.
difficult decisions.
Thank you. Paul, I'm going to turn to you next.
I agree that candidates talking about, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this is going to mean some spending. But I do think that there are ways. I disagree with Reza. I'll give you an example. The Toronto Zoo, if you look at the annual report for the Toronto Zoo, it's been losing $10 million a year easily since it opened. The City of Toronto writes a check to the zoo every year for $10 million. I have ideas, multiple ideas that I know will not only have it so that the zoo doesn't lose money, but that it actually generates money and brings money into the Toronto coffers so that we can put.
Sorry, keep going,
How does
please.
that work?
No,
Oh.
please keep going.
So that the revenue coming in can go into other things, and we can spend it back in the community. Is that over? How long do I have? Forever? Okay, so, but.
Now time's up. I'm sorry. Okay.
Jeez.
We do have a rebuttal, which means you'll take 30 seconds off your closing remarks, Reza.
Is this on? Yeah. Your zoo idea will come up with pennies compared to what we need. So it's great that you're talking about that, and I'm not even sure if it's a viable idea, but it does nothing to our bottom line. I'm talking about systemic changes to the way we bring revenue into the system, looking at new revenue forms, whether it's levies, whether it's taxes, whether it's whatever it is. We need to look at forms of revenue to bring money in. So you're doing the misnomer to not only yourself, but to the people that you're trying to get a vote for when you stand there and say, I'm not going to touch taxes, but I'm going to get all creative and figure out all these ways to bring money. That zoo idea would be a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of money that we actually need. And all you have to do is look at places like Chicago,
Sorry,
look
let
at
him
places
finish.
like New York
Yeah,
City.
30 seconds.
They have a much more robust revenue
No, 30
stream than we
seconds.
do.
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, okay.
And Paul, you can comment.
Okay, so when you talk about my zoo idea, have you sat with me and talked to me about my zoo idea?
No, I saw the videos,
hold-
and that was enough.
Hey, so first of all, I spent a lot of time on it. Let's talk about a few things. Number one, Air Canada Centre just did a deal with Scotiabank. Scotiabank paid them $800 million to change the name of Air Canada Centre to Scotiabank Arena. I think Purina, Nestle, a big company, would love to rename the zoo Purina Zoo, Nestle Zoo. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave us three.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay, so
do you
there's
want to
your
be
30
quiet?
seconds.
Do you want to be quiet?
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Reza, you're almost risking losing
pretty
that
rude,
other
but I
card there, so.
So,
Okay,
His ideas are really funny.
Paul, you've
so-
had 30 seconds. Reza, and I'm going to move on. Cheryl, jump in on this, please.
Yes. So for those who can live in houses, who can afford to live in houses, because there are a lot of people who cannot afford to live in a house and can't even afford their rent, property taxes are some of the most exorbitant here in the city of Toronto. I've spoken with a number of people while I'm out talking, and one of the issues is that people have indicated that they are house poor. I'm sure a number of us here can identify with that. So one of the things we need to look at is how we can keep property taxes low while having people stay in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to get our timing right. So Amanda, I'm going to call on you next. It's 1 minute, Varesh. Okay. You ready to go? Okay. Okay, Amanda?
Okay, I love that we're talking numbers here because Toronto actually has $33 billion of unfunded capital projects over the next 15 years. $33 billion. If we increase property taxes to 2%, we're still going to see a reduction of current services. This was already described by city managers and KPMG during the budget. We know that we have to raise property tax at least 4% to be able to cover the 10 reports and initiatives that the city council has reviewed and approved over the last 4 years and put off onto this new council to make a decision on. So be very wary about mayors who are saying that they're going to keep property taxes low because it will reduce our services and our ability to have a good quality of life. I do think there's other revenue that we could bring in, such as permitted street parking.
Thank you. David, right at the end. You're up.
Yeah, I think they, like was announced the other day, that they should keep just below the rate of inflation or around the rate of inflation at 2.1. I think that's a great idea because why would we raise taxes? You tell everybody you're going to raise taxes. It's not a good idea. There's other means to raise money in the community and especially in the wards, creating jobs and infrastructure, and there's so many things we could do other than raising taxes.
Thank you. Neethan, are you ready?
For us to maintain the service levels at which we have in terms of staffing, in terms of maintenance and so on, we'll at least need to have a property tax increase at or close to inflation level. Two things that I want to keep stressing if I'm supposed to be on the side of increasing property taxes. One is for seniors to have more programs that they can opt into for property tax relief, because many seniors who have contributed so much to building this nation are struggling at homes with property tax increases. The other thing is to make sure Scarborough gets its fair share. You know, the blanket increases of percentages is fine, but Scarborough still gets left out in terms of getting a fair share of resources. So once those things are established, you know, I would be more than happy to help increase the property taxes to have more services for Scarborough. But until that is established, it makes little sense for us to keep continuing to increase the property tax where Scarborough keeps getting left behind in terms of resources and maintenance, and our streets are not maintained, our snow removal and garbage pickup suffers. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel.
So as most of you are aware, if you've seen my literature, you've seen my website, votecubellis.ca, you've seen that I want to keep property taxes at the rate of inflation. That's what my stance is on it. But I also want to do other things to prevent cuts. For example, I want to see that we have alternative taxation methods, like Reza said, and one of them that we haven't talked about is actually a foreign buyer's tax. I'm not talking about 15% that the government or the provincial government has already put in place, but a higher tax, 85, 90, 100%, right? So that we can use that money for our seniors. We can use that money for Toronto community housing. We can use that money for other things because, you know, we have a problem with our housing market. But I also want to go back to public services. Maybe we do need cuts, and I'll explain why. Let's look at the benefit of these services. Let's look at how they, economically, how they help us. If we put in $1 and we're only getting 20 cents back, that's a waste. We need to cut it. If we're only getting 20 cents of social services, when we're putting in for every $1, we need to cut those back because those aren't benefiting anybody.
Thank you. Christopher.
I've heard a lot of talk over here about raise taxes, raise taxes, raise taxes. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I did it for many years before I opened my business. I'm sure not one person in this room likes to pay taxes. You know, Reza said, you know, we can't find places to save money. Sure we can. Shouldn't cost $50,000 to do a survey of Lawrence and Morningside is safe for pedestrians. I could stand out there for 15 minutes and tell you if it's safe for pedestrians. You know, we have a lot of wasteful spending in this city, and we can tidy it up. It shouldn't cost $30,000 to put a simple swing set up in a park. You know, I don't want to pay any more taxes. Neethan, he voted to increase taxes 2.99%, 0.32%, and in favor of a municipal sales tax. Come on, we're drained as it is. Enough's enough. Let's find money elsewhere. It's a very simple solution. Thanks.
Thank you. And Jennifer, I think you're last. Here.
I'm a firm believer in fiscal responsibility. It's how I run my household. It's how I'll run your city. Affordability is a critical issue for many people in this city. They simply are being squeezed out and finding it very difficult to live here. So I can promise that I will review all expenditures very closely. I will try to find savings where there are any, if they're there. But then I also promise to look at alternate revenue tools so that we can try to raise revenue that we need for critical investments in infrastructure and programming to keep Toronto on track.
Great, thank you. Before I turn it over to Janise for the final closing remarks, just like to say you've all presented yourself intelligently as passionate leaders. I'm thrilled to hear that you put your names forward. And as I've said elsewhere, it makes me proud to be a resident of this city, to meet all you folks. So thank you very much from me, and I'll turn it over to Janise.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, now we are at our closing. We are at the portion where we are doing our closing statement. But before I do that, I just want to find out, does anybody want to rebut or make a comment to any of the other questions before we go on to closing? If not, we will. Yes, Amanda? Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Amanda would like to. Who are you rebutting, though?
I think his name is David.
David, at the end? Okay.
We were talking about, you were talking about the amount that we spend for projects and for assessments, and I totally agree with that. We are hiring consultants that are bringing in $120,000 a year, which is more than city councilors are making. I do think we need to honestly assess the amount of services that we are working with and the allocations, where the departments are getting their for those departments that are getting their funding. If we stay with the status quo budget for each department every year, it's unreasonable. I've worked in not-for-profit, and that's not sustainable.
Dave, do you want to respond? Yeah.
That was me.
Which one are you? Oh, that was, oh, sorry. That was his comment.
Yeah.
So you go
I
ahead and
agree with her.
respond.
You know, people say, I understand property taxes is a necessary evil, but I think if we push hard and look and find where we can find some savings, we can drop that property tax prices back. We as Torontonians are fairly lucky. Our property taxes are still relatively low if you compare, Pickering, Oshawa, Ajax. They're ridiculous. Let's try to keep it low. Let's try not to force people out of the city. We can save money. We really can.
Okay, thank you. I also saw, Paul, you had raised your card. Do you wish to? Okay.
No, I thought I had a free chance to say something. I thought it was a freebie.
We thought it was a freebie. No,
Yeah.
sorry.
But now that it's not, I don't want
Okay.
to do it.
All right. Well, this brings us to our closing statements. And what I will do is I will start with Danielle. And Danielle has, so everybody has a minute and a half, with the exception of Amanda, who has a minute, and Reza, who has a minute. So actually, why don't we start with Amanda, and then Reza, and then we'll do the minute and a half. It just makes it easier for for Resh. Okay? 1 minute, yes. Okay, Reza, go ahead.
It's Reza.
Reza, sorry.
That's okay. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out here today. Also, you got a small glimpse of my passion speaking with Mr. Cookson here. Really, I am a Scarborough kid. My heart is in this place. I am doing this for the right reasons. I have worked with a lot of politicians in my day, and the vast majority of them do this for personal reasons. And I am not one of those people. I am here to truly make a difference. I grew up in poverty as a child. I know how hard it is to take yourself by the bootstraps and make something of yourself. I dedicated my life to education. I dedicated my life to public service, and that's what I've been doing for a very long time, and that's what I will continue to do for each and every single one of you. I will not be the type of counselor that you see once every 4 years. I will not be the type of counselor that you get an email reply from one of my staffers. I will be at your door if you need me. I will be on the phone if you need me. And most importantly, I will read. A lot of people here are
Reza.
not actually reading about the policies. Thank you.
Thank you. And Amanda, the floor is yours.
As your counselor, I'll ensure to represent your voice at City Hall. I value diversity and inclusion, respecting your public dollars, and I will bring in knowledgeable and participatory decision-making. And you will have a counselor who is honest and has courage in the face as politics as usual. We need to maintain the good quality care of our neighborhoods, and I will ensure that a constituency team is very responsive to our needs. Let me help you get things done. You know, I was born and raised here. I love my city. I think we all do, and I think you have a good selection of people to choose from during this election. I do hope that you bring somebody in that is willing and able to bring all communities together.
Thank you, Amanda. Paul, we'll go to you. Okay, so now we're going to reset because it's for 1.5 minutes for the remaining candidates. And we'll just wait for the thumbs up from our timekeeper, and he's given that to me. So, Paul, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Where do I start? My mind is swimming with different things. My slogan is time for action, and that's true about me. I've built businesses, successful businesses, and when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. If you've seen me in the community, I've been literally working 14-hour days for weeks and weeks and weeks now. I've given out countless thousands of cards, and I've talked to tons of people. I want to bring common sense to the city of Toronto. When somebody says to me, Reza, that the city spends money and they spend it well, and that there's no savings to be had, it actually drives me insane. The city wastes money, wastes money, wastes money. Like, I don't know how clearer I can say it. I go to a man's house. Here's a good example. I go to a man's house and I say, sir, what's your number one issue? And he says, you know what? My number one issue is my kid almost got killed at a crosswalk. He was almost run over. He called 311 and he reported it. 311 said, we're going to do a study. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of studying it. Why don't we just put up bigger signs? How much would that cost? Instead of spending money on studying, why don't we just do common sense things? It drives me mental. By the time we pay for a study, we could have just fixed it in the first place. Doesn't make sense to me. Counselors' offices. Why on earth does a counselor need an office in a retail plaza? Does it make any sense to you? I don't understand. Why does a counselor need an office in a big office tower? We have community centers. There are space in community centers for us to have offices. That's more savings.
Thank you, Paul. Now we'll go to Cheryl.
Hi. First of all, thank you guys very much for having this forum, and thank you for being here. This is really important to me. You know, being able to represent my community and to be that strong voice. I've lived in Scarborough, in Rouge River, Rouge Park, as it is now, for a very long time. I understand the needs of the community. I don't want to bring my issues to you, but I want to be able to engage with residents and to be the voice of our community. I want to be able to bridge the divide. I understand what it is to work with people on the ground, and I understand what it is to work with people at very top level. I've worked with United Way Toronto, as I indicated before, and we advocated on behalf of the people who did not have. As a new grandmother, I am very concerned about the daycare issue. I'm very concerned about the transit issues. I am concerned about safe and affordable housing. There are many people who can't afford to be in their own house. So there are a lot of things that needs to be fixed, and I want to be that strong voice speaking on your behalf at City Hall, and I promise to be engaged and to be open to your ideas and to communicate with you on an ongoing basis. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Cheryl. Daniel, it's your time.
Okay. Oh, is it on? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. So thank you, everybody, for partaking in a democratic process, coming out today to listen to all of us and be more informed. You know, before you cast your ballot, whether it's during the advanced polling period or if it's on October 22nd, I want to ask you all one question to keep in the back of your mind, to always think about before you cast that ballot. Who do you want representing you for the next 4 years? Who do you want? Do you want somebody who, quite frankly, has run in more elections than I've had birthdays? Do you want people who just create committees to get their name out there? Do you want people who just want to suck off the teat of taxpayers, quite frankly? No. You want people who are good-hearted, people who have their heart in the right place. There are many of us here today. And you know what? You should have people who want to serve you, like myself. I've said all my talking points about serving you guys. I want to be out there for you. I want to be at your door. I want to have my town meetings. I want to have my cell phone out there, my office, everything. I'm working for you. I'm not going to be here to collect a paycheck, year after year and never show my face anywhere except for when it's advantageous, to my career or to my name. I'm here to serve all of you all the time. And what I want to also mention is the fact that we got to have people with experience. My background's in civil engineering. We don't have any engineers or urban planners on city council. Why is that? Let's change the dynamic. Let's have people with proper experience, real life experience, in planning our infrastructure, working with evidence, working with using their logic, using common sense. We need more people like that serving us at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Jennifer, it's your time.
Ward 25 deserves a representative that has the energy, passion, and determination to ensure Scarborough gets its fair share. You need a councillor with a vision for Scarborough and a demonstrated commitment to our community. You need a councillor who can build consensus at City Hall and with our provincial and federal representatives so that we can move plans into action. I'm committed to working for you at Toronto City Hall. For the past 5 months, I have been knocking on doors across Scarborough-Rouge Park. I'd like to thank the thousands of residents that have been welcoming and have shared their ideas with me. I look forward to continuing these conversations as your councillor and as your neighbor. I'm confident I have the experience to implement my plan for an integrated transit network for Scarborough, more jobs for Scarborough, and safer school zones for our children. No other candidate is as committed to working for you as I am. On October 22nd, vote Jennifer McKelvie because Scarborough deserves better.
Thank you, Jennifer. David, at the end there, it's your time.
I'd just like to say I have a real passion for this area because I've been here forever and I know people and they know what I've done and how I can change this area and make it a better place. I'll take my voice down to City Hall. I'm sure they're going to be listening because after helping Ron and everybody else get elected since 1990, I think it's my turn and I deserve everybody deserves their turn, and I put a lot of effort in. I volunteer every day. I walk the ward. I know every inch of the ward. I'm a photographer. I walk the waterfront. Every event I'm at, I attended 40 events this year already. I organized 7 events since January, and I plan on doing as much as I can do for this ward to make it a better place, even a safer place, and I intend to do that.
Thank you, David. Now, Christopher, it's your time for your closing statements.
Thank you. I would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, taking time out of their day. Thank you for the opportunity to debate. Much appreciated. It's good to have our voices heard. I also like to thank the unsung heroes, all the volunteers. These people work tirelessly to help us out, going door to door, taking time out of their day, and it is very, very much appreciated. What you've heard up here today is a lot of the same old, very well-rehearsed answers read off of cards or off of phones. Always, again, the same old. I'm tired of the same old. We literally need a voice to stand up and be heard, but not to stand up and be heard, but stand up and scream over Make it heard. Scarborough, Scarborough is a very important part of the GTA. We are a huge community. We contribute a lot to the kitty, and we need more and we need better. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Neethan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you to SNAP for organizing this debate, and thanks to all the candidates. Very uncertain and unexpected changes during the campaign, and all the candidates have put their names forward to be able to strengthen local democracy. One of the things that I have had the privilege of being a counselor for Scarborough-Rouge Park, the north part of Scarborough-Rouge Park, and I've been able to fight to bring more transit. I've been able to fight to make our schools safer, and I just want to continue that work. I've been able to fight to make our communities safer. I've been able to fight to keep our essential services public. It is very important for us to continue the path in Scarborough-Rouge Park to achieve many goals we have. Now that we are moving into 25 councillor situation, we need strong voices from Scarborough that can stand up and be heard, the strong voices that can actually get things done. And it's very important that experience and the leadership that I bring is at the table. I have given up a lot of my time as youth worker, as a teacher, as a school board trustee. I have 2 children now, 4-year-old and 7-year-old. I live with my wife and 2 children in Scarborough. I give up my time from my family because I believe Scarborough has a higher potential that we need to tap into. And that can only happen by a strong leadership. And I hope you'll consider me as I move forward to represent all the different neighborhoods, strengthen each of the unique neighborhoods to have a strong voice at City Hall, because it's very, very important for us to have alternatives to the kind of cuts we are seeing in terms of local democracy at the grassroots level at each of the neighborhoods. And I would prioritize that first. Thank you.
Thank you, Neethan. Thank you all. I think it's safe to say this was truly a passionate debate. We all love Scarborough, and that's what was shining through, that everybody on there really wants policies and programs to make a difference. Give them a hand. And I thank Dave Hardy
Thank you, Janise.
for being
Thank you,
here.
Paresh.
And yes, the timekeeper all day from. So, yeah, you'll sleep well today. So as we wrap it up here, I do want to thank you, the audience, first and foremost, and all the other audience that came before you, and the people that are listening online, because it is for you why we do this, so that you can hear from these candidates and make a wise decision when you go to that voting poll on October the 22nd. I also want to thank our great sponsors, because without these sponsors, we would not be able to do this. It starts from Savannah Bhavan. I was saying it right all day long. Say it again. Thank you. And that is actually Kula from Netwin Place. I want to thank Kula from the bottom of my heart. He has sponsored this event and has been the man behind the scenes to get all this done. So Kula, I thank you. And we are looking forward to doing many more. 747 Auto Parts, Big Canadian Van Lines, Netwin Place, and the Rotary Club of Scarborough. The Rotary Clubs of Scarborough, all 5 of them. That's Gerard. I'll talk to him later. But he's right. All 6 of them have come in. All 6 of our clubs in Scarborough, our Rotary clubs in Scarborough, made a difference to make this happen. These guys do great things. I see it as being a publisher for Snap Scarborough, all these great events. So I thank you guys for sponsoring and making this happen. And last but not least, our volunteers. Fran Banner is at the back with Mary Maestri and the beautiful crew here at Netwin Place that helped to set this thing up, fill the waters. We have a village behind us to make this happen. So I really want to thank them too. And Snap Scarborough, we are here to keep the community involved. And I just want to do a cheap plug, because we're having a big celebration, our 6th annual Celebration of Excellence in Scarborough on October the 17th at the Old Stone Cottage Pub. And if you haven't been there, it's something to see. We love Scarborough. We think there's good people in Scarborough and good businesses, and we want to celebrate. And tomorrow, we're launching our this year's Excellence Award winner. Dave was one of them last year. He's modest, so I can say that. So I hope that you join us on that day, and more importantly, I hope that you go out and vote on October the 22nd and make your voice heard. So thank you, and I will see you next week at the celebration.
Thank you.